Alrighty, my friends, object-oriented programming, a term so widely used and so important in the programming community that we need to learn it or at least know what it is. So, what is object-oriented programming and why do we need it, right? What is it and why? Object-oriented programming is simply a way for us to organize software around data and objects. And I'm going to rephrase that in a way where it's not so much about the language. It is not so much about what you program in. More so, it's about how you program, right? Because you can program multiple ways. But object-oriented programming is one of the ways that you can program. And one of the ways includes combining related attributes, you can see here, combining related attributes and functions into container objects. So attributes are simply things that define something, and then functions are what something can perform, right? So I'll have an example here. When I say into container objects, I have an example here. Let's say I have this box, right? It's just a Google Home Mini box. And obviously this Google Home Mini box is just a container, right? And inside the container, obviously you have the actual Google Home Mini. And so that Google Home Mini has attributes. For example, it has a certain color, right? It has a certain shape. It has certain function. It has certain buttons, right? And those define its attributes. Functionalities, on the other hand, is what can this Google Home Mini do, right? So it can, for example, it can answer to you, right? It can play music for you. It can do all these things, and those, my friends, are functions of a container object, right? And that is honestly how we also try to program, if you think about it like that. And the way I want to show you is let's take a car, right? So I showed you Google Home Mini, but let's take a car. So a car is an object, right? Just think about it like that. And the car has attributes. It has a make, year, color, engine, interior color, and there's so many more, I can't even name them. But at the same time, it also has methods. Now, methods are functions, just a very fancy word for functions. That's all it is. And the methods for this car are, you can unlock a car, you can lock a car, you can start an engine, boom boom, you can shut off the engine, you can drive it, you can park it, you can reverse it. And there's obviously many more to it, but that's just an example. And so this container, right, is an object. It's a container of all the methods and attributes of this specific car that it can do. And by the way, this car looks really cool. I don't know if it's a Porsche or what, but anyways, moving on to why do we need to learn it and why is it so important in the community, in the programming community in general? Well, you see, object-oriented programming is very important for a few things. For one, it encourages organization. So basically, organizes code very nicely. It's easier to maintain. It's reusable, and allows us to build large applications. That is honestly the big part. All those companies like Facebook, right, Google, they use object-oriented programming because they have billions of lines of code that they have to maintain and the developers have to write. And so they need to have a certain structure. They need to have a certain way in which they write those programs, right? And so object-oriented programming is a way to set those standards. And I have an example here of just how it works. So let's say, for example, here on the top, you have a normal program, right? So normal program has, functions, it has variables, the axes are variables, functions are defined by the circles right here. And you just have functions, they're kind of there, they're floating around. Same thing for variables. And some functions might call other functions, and it's just a whole party, right? Well, if we take it into an object-oriented programming way, here's what we'll get. We'll get one object that has certain functions within it and certain variables. We'll have another object that has certain functions and certain variables. We have an object 3 that has certain functions and certain variables, and I have an object 4 that have certain functions and certain variables. Now you tell me which one is more organized and is easier to read and maintain. Exactly. This one. Hopefully I didn't say this one, but this one. This is the one that's easier to maintain. And so as you can see with that, we can really build amazing applications, amazing programs, and that's how my friends, we scale up applications, and that's how we build things.